Some time ago I played and reviewed a game called Calidia, which tries to combine wargame and Eurogame, but it left me a little bit with mixed feelings because it seems that the Eurogame aspects come in the way of the wargame experience and the other way around. The Eurogamers tend to see this as too much of a wargame. So I thought, is there a game that does combine the two aspects of the game well? And I thought, yes, there is, and it's a game that I really much enjoy, and that game is Shogun by Queen Games. It is a game for 3 to 5 players. It is set in feudal Japan, and the players will take the role of local lords trying to expand their empires by building castles, temples, theaters, by gaining money, and especially by attacking each other and getting each other's way. How does that work? How does this combine Eurogame and Wargame? Well, just follow this review and you're going to find out. This is the board for the game. It represents Japan. It is divided in several large regions of different colors, and each region is then divided in smaller provinces. The map has two sides. One is the sun side, as you can see from that symbol, and the other side is the moon side. They play differently, and the sun side is recommended for beginner players. At the beginning of the game, the players will place their armies, represented by these wooden cubes, on the map. They can choose free deployment, or they can choose the option of following one of the recommended setups recommended by the player aid, which are suggested especially for new players. Just to give a sense of how the game looks like when it is set up, I just set it up following the recommended beginner setup for 4 players. Each game is divided in 8 turns and represents 2 years, so each turn represents a season. At the beginning of each year, the players will draw 4 cards from that deck, and these cards will be placed one at a time at the beginning of each turn in that space. And during the first 3 turns, the players will look at the top part of each card that represents a special effect that will take place for that season. It may be the cost of certain things is modified, or certain attacks, certain defenses are modified, so different seasons will play differently. It's interesting because you see what the next effects are going to be, but you don't know exactly in what order they're going to hit, because after the turn in which that card is used is over, then you start a new turn, then you shuffle them again, and you get another random card. So you do that for each season, then you get to the 4th turn, which is winter. At that point, you look at the bottom of that card, where there will be a penalty on the rice that the players have collected during the year. Because during the winter turn, you do not have regular operations, the players simply have to pay rice to feed their provinces, and they need to collect it during the year so that they have enough. If they don't have enough rice to feed their provinces after the penalty is applied, then they're going to experience revolts from the farmers living in the provinces, in the provinces, and they may lose control of some of those. So you do that then again for the second year of operations, and at the end of the 8th turn, you count the victory points, which are based on the number of buildings that you built, the number of provinces that you control, and your presence in each region on the board. At that point, the person with the highest number of victory points is the winner. Another thing that you do before you start to turn is you shuffle this deck of 5 cards, and these cards represent several advantages, from being able to buy some extra armies, collecting extra rice, having an advantage in attack, extra money, an advantage in defense. So they will shuffle this deck, and then they will place these cards face up on that track there. Then the players will reveal the bid that they secretly made using these cards, how much money they wanted to pay in terms of chests of gold, to go and be the first and the second person and the third person to place their character card on that track. Suppose this is the person that spent the most in bidding for initiative, then he gets to be the first person to pick up one of the cards and to place his own card instead of that card, where the card was. Suppose the guy wants this card, so for this turn you will have an advantage in attack. Then this is the person, for example, that bid the second highest amount of money. Then you can choose, I want this card, and you want to go there. And then, for example, this guy wants this card here. Once every player plays their card on that track, then after this track becomes the initiative track, meaning that the players will resolve their actions in that order on the track. This will be the first player to act in each of the actions of the game, of the turn. This is the second player, this is the third, and then it goes back. So actually, when you're bidding for initiative, you're not necessarily bidding to go first in the turn. There will be times where actually you want a specific card which is there, so actually you're spending a lot of money just that you can be the first player to place a card there, even though it means actually then to be maybe last in the game in that turn. Next, the players will start what is probably the most important phase in the game, which is deciding what you're going to do for the season that is starting. You will have to commit a card with a certain number of chests of gold for initiative, or you can also commit a blank. Then you will commit your province cards to different types of actions that are available during the game. That means that if you're committing to a certain action, when the action is going to be executed according to the turn order, you will execute it in the province that you have committed. The actions that are available are building a castle, building a shrine, building a theater for the amount of money indicated there, and these buildings will give you victory points at the end of the game. Also, each card, each province has a space here where the square is that tells you how many buildings can be built in a certain region. You can confiscate rice from a region. Again, the card tells you how much rice can be confiscated, and you will use that rice later during the winter to feed your provinces. You can collect taxes, very important, and again the province card tells you how much money you make from collecting taxes in a certain region, extremely important because you need the money to do pretty much everything. Then you have other actions which are more strictly war related, which are to spend a certain amount of money to add 5 new armies or 3 new armies to one of your regions or to your provinces, or to add 1 army to one of your provinces and then to move a certain number of armies from that province to another province belonging to you. And then each turn you can start to battles in the provinces that you committed there. This system has several effects. One of the most interesting ones is that your actions gain a certain momentum. Once you commit to execute a certain action in a certain province, then you have to carry it out no matter if during the turn the situation changed and now the action is completely unprofitable or disastrous for you. Combat is handled by using this very neat battle tower, which looks like a dice tower but is slightly different in that it has layers which are perpendicular to the ground and they have several holes in them. So some of the cubes you throw in there will go right through it, and several other ones will sit in there until other cubes later will push them out. Combat happens when one of the players moves some of his armies into another player's province, and the attacker always needs to leave at least an army behind. The armies are represented by these cubes. Then all you do, you just get all the cubes involved in the battle and you toss them in the tower. As you can see, not all cubes will come down, and in this case, for example, many stayed in there, and the player with the highest number in the tray is the winner. In this case, for example, is a tie, both cubes are eliminated. Suppose that now, and the province is empty, suppose that now the red player sees an opportunity here, the red player attacks, then you toss all of these cubes in the tower, and you see what happens there. In this case, the red is the winner. You still have to subtract the number of cubes of the loser from the total number, so these 2 cubes are eliminated, and the surviving cube stays there. As you can see then, well, new opportunities open all the time if you are not careful and you leave too few cubes behind. Another type of battle happens when the players move their armies into a neutral province, so basically trying to steal it from the farmers, or when the players keep collecting taxes from the same province, or when during the winter the players cannot feed all of their provinces. In both of these last cases, then the farmers will revolt. Then you take the cubes of the province where the event is happening, you add a certain number of green cubes depending on the severity of the revolt, and then you just have the battle between the players' armies and the farmers' armies, and it works as usual, where you just take, in this case the farmers lose because you only have 2 cubes, and you eliminate 2 cubes from the player, and you put all the remaining ones back. As you can see, in this case, there were cubes that had remained in the towers from previous battles, and they just came down now, and the player was lucky because they helped against the farmers. Also, you have a blue cube there from a previous battle. Cubes that do not apply to the present battle stay in there, and again, then if there is another battle, suppose later the blue player attacks here, or this is his own thing, suppose that the blue player attacks there, then you throw all them in, and you also include the ones in the tray. So actually the battles, in this case, well, the red player wins and keeps the province. But as you can see, the progression of the battles influences what's going to happen next. You may lose a battle, but that means the several of the cubes are still in the tower, and that means that you basically have reserves for future battles. So there's a way of balancing battles. Maybe you will lose one now, but you will have more cubes available for later. So again, a lot that you have to take into consideration, and it's very important you remember what cubes, how many cubes by which players are in the tower, because that might affect the outcome of the battles immensely.